Hey, Rick, welcome to the show.
I am so excited to be here. Thank you for having
I'm,
me. I appreciate
I'm
it.
so happy that you're here. So, why don't we just start off by you telling us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I run an online business that we teach online advertising. We specialize in Facebook and Instagram ads, but not just how to do ads, but also where they fit into the overall growth of a business, right? So how do we use ads to have a bigger impact, to reach more people, to grow our email list, to make more revenue, that sort of thing. And then they're just one part of the business, right? So I also coach students on growing their online business and where the ads part fits into all that, and where, like, creating an offer and being super clear on your target audience and how you serve them, and team building and mindset and all that stuff. And so I've been doing this now for 5 years. We just celebrated our 5-year anniversary in January. But I've been in the online advertising space for 19 and a half years now. I can't believe I'm saying that out loud.
That's
Um,
crazy.
yeah, it is. It's a long time. So I started back in 2000 at AOL, back when
Wow.
um, we were still sending discs out in the mail to connect to the internet. And, it was still that crazy annoying dial-up sound.
I remember it.
Um, so I was at AOL for 5 years, and then I moved out here to the West Coast and spent a couple years at Yahoo. Spent some time at a company called Vibrant Media. Spent time with Funny or Die, which is Will Ferrell's online platform, and I was doing all forms of online advertising at that point, from way back in AOL to like the online banner, like the banners and stuff like that, to as the years went on, to search, to video, to what they call brand entertainment, to text links, to all kinds of stuff. And then in 2010 was when I really started to see the opportunity that existed with Facebook ads for small businesses. Excuse me. And so I kind of jumped in and started teaching myself Facebook advertising and how small businesses could leverage Facebook ads to grow their business. And so that's been over 9 years now. And so I left the corporate world in the fall of 2012, I became, quote unquote, an online entrepreneur. I put that in air quotes here because I had no idea what I was doing, what that meant. I fumbled around for about 15 months, and I didn't gain any kind of traction in my online business until January of 2014. And that's when I started selling an online course about Facebook ads. And yeah, that was a little over 5 years ago. And it's been an amazing run. I love what I do.
So cool. I love how you said you fumbled around and you didn't really know what you were doing for how
Yeah.
long? 15 months?
15 months, because I left the corporate world. I remember exactly September 30th, 2012. And so October, November, December of 2013, and the entire year of 2014, I had no idea what I was doing. I just thought that because I had known Facebook ads, that I could start working with other businesses to run their ads from home, basically. Well, I had this illusion that because I may have been working with one business, that other businesses would like start running, to work with me. Well, that was not the case.
Yeah.
And and also in 2004, 2013, I was like, well, let me create an ebook. This is back when ebooks were really big. Let me create an ebook about how to do Facebook ads. And I sold it for $47, and I did 2 sales. And I was running ads for it as well. I had no idea what I was doing. And so I would say by September or October of 2013, I was running out of savings, and I was like, oh, like, I'm gonna have to go back to the corporate world here, which was not what I wanted to do. Nothing against corporate world or having a day job, because that's what I did for years. I just didn't want to do it. And things really turned around for me when I got a business coach, who had an online business and started to really turn things around in January, because number one, I was like, what am I selling? I really had no idea what I was selling. I mean, this sounds so funny, but I really didn't know what I was selling, which is why I wasn't making any revenue. And then I was also really struggling with, like, well, who am I to be teaching Facebook ads? Because, back then there were the Amy Porterfields of the world and Mari Smith, and they'd like literally written the book on Facebook marketing for dummies. And so I was like, who am I to be teaching this stuff? Yeah, I know online advertising. I've been doing it at that time for almost 14 years, but I wasn't, I was new to the online, or I was new to the Facebook ads world. And so I didn't have a platform. I didn't have a following. My email list was like 300 people. And so yeah, that once I get over that and, and completely turned around to like, who am I not to be teaching this stuff? And this is what I'm going to sell. Boom. I was off to the races, and 2014 was a really good year.
I love what you just said because I think a lot of people think that success happens quickly, but you
Yeah.
said like it took a long time and you had no idea what you're doing and you went through that imposter syndrome that so many entrepreneurs really go through.
Yeah.
And so just knowing that we're not alone.
It's that iceberg metaphor, right? Like you only see
Yes.
what's going on above the water. You never see what's going on below the water. Well, the below the water oftentimes is, people think like, oh, that person's an overnight success. Well, what people don't see is all the years of failure and not knowing what they're doing and working really hard to try to get this thing going. um yeah, like that was, yes, it was 2014. I did six figures in 2014, my first year, but it really wasn't the first year because I'd been fumbling around for almost a year and a half before that. And since 2010, while I was in the corporate world, I was trying to figure out like what I was going to do. And then finally in 2000, in the fall there of 2012, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to make the jump. I'm just tired of doing this. I'm just going to make this work. And it almost didn't work out. I almost had to go back to the corporate world.
So what happened in 2014? What did you do differently?
The big thing there was answering those two things. What do I sell? And it sounds so stupid, right, to say that out loud. Like, well, why aren't you making any? That was one of the first questions that my coach asked me. I was like, well, why do you think you're not making any money? And I was like, hmm. And I like literally sat there for like 5 minutes trying to figure this out. And he's like, could it be because you're not selling anything? It was like,
That's
ding, ding,
cute.
ding. Like, pretty obvious, right? Okay, so I answered that was, all right, I'm going to sell something. I'm going to sell a course. And then the other thing was I had this imposter syndrome. Like, who am I to be doing this stuff? So once I realized, like, who am I not to be doing it, then combine that with, okay, here's a plan of how I'm going to do things. Um, I'm going to put together the idea of a course for at that time it was Facebook ads, and I'm going to sell it via a webinar. I'm going to use my knowledge of Facebook ads to get people to register for the webinar, and I'm going to sell this course before creating it. So I basically outlined the entire program, shared that with people, what it was going to be, and then I want to say I sold it on cart open on a Thursday, and I module one was going to start like on that Monday. And so I wanted to validate it first, right? I didn't want to spend all this time creating the course before selling it. And I sold courses, and it was like, holy cow, this is actually working. Now, like if you want to light a fire, there's no better way than like selling whatever it is that you're offering and having people waiting for it than to light that fire of like, all right, you go create it now. And so I said, all right, module one, I'm teaching it on that Monday. I'm starting it on Monday. And it was, that was just the start. I was off to the races at that point. And we did $30,000 in 45 days, in the first 45 days of 2014. And that just started to that started to build momentum. And yeah, we did 110,000 in revenue in 2014. That was like, okay, this stuff really works. I can do this.
It does. That must have been so exciting. And I love that you said you validated the offer by pre-selling it. That's exactly what I did with my first online course. And
Yeah.
I think a lot of people skip that step and they create it and then they
Yep.
try to sell it and they waste so much time.
Yeah, that's how I teach my group coaching students, is that, so many of them come to me with their course already created, but they're not selling it. And it's like,
Mm.
okay, you're getting to me at this point. Now we have to deal with, for lack of a better way to say it, now we have this to work with. But if we had to do it again, I would rather see you create the outline of the course, what the promise is, what's the premise of the course, who is it benefiting, all that other stuff, and then put all that together and then sell it. And then once people start buying it, then create it. Let's validate all that first and then do it, as opposed to spending all this time creating the course and then having no idea if people are going to buy it. Well, you've just wasted a bunch of time if, God forbid, nobody buys it.
Exactly. Oh, that's good. What are some tips or strategies you have for generating leads and sales?
Number one, you have to understand your target audience.
Ooh,
You, like,
yes.
so many people, say they understand their target audience, but They really don't. And, I'm not picking on anybody, but I mean, I love to ask the question on a scale of 1 to 10, how well, how well do you think you understand your target audience? And, 10 being like, yeah, I have it down pat. Well, a lot of times people will answer like 7, 8, 9. Some people, some people say tens. Um, some people will be honest and say like 3 or 4. But it's those 7, 8s, nines, and even tens that I'll find very interesting because then I want to dig in, right? Okay, I'll start asking them questions. And when it comes down to it, they often don't have a very good understanding. And when I say don't have a good understanding, they might have a cursory knowledge of their audience. They we hear this whole term of like your ideal customer avatar. Well, okay, it's Joe who is 35 years old and he has a corporate job, blah blah blah. Well, what are they interested in? What are their pain points? What are their challenges? What are their hobbies? What are their interests? Where do they shop? What books do they read? Now we're looking at it. We're painting a complete picture of that target audience so that we can solve those problems or solve that main problem. Because if they are our target audience, we have an expertise in a specific type of niche. Well, I can solve that problem to build my email list. So I can make a video, I can make a video series, I can do a webinar, I can do, a cheat sheet, a checklist, whatever it is. I can add some value to them that solves that problem for them to grow our email list. The second thing is once we have that understanding of a target audience, then we can create whatever that offer is that solves that problem. Most people just put something out there and they think that it's helping our target audience when in reality they don't have that full understanding of their target audience, so that the offer that they're making doesn't completely align, right? We want to be attracting our ideal audience to our email list, and we have to do that by starting out with understanding that target audience and then creating whatever that lead magnet is to get them on our email list based on the problem that we're solving and the challenge that we're solving for them.
I think that's so key. And a lot of people just assume, and you can't ever assume. You have to actually like figure this stuff out and ask.
Yeah, exactly. One of the best things I did in my business was, and I look back on it now and I kick myself because it took me, I remember it very clearly. It was about 15 months into, no, it was a year and a half actually. So it was about, I remember this actually. It was August of 2015. I was sitting in a Starbucks up in North County here in San Diego. Um, I had gotten on Skype with probably 4 or 5 of my quote unquote ideal customers. I had never done this before. I had never actually talked to my ideal customers. And what I wanted to do was like just talk to them, just number one, connect with them. Number two, learn a little bit more about them and why they bought my program and what sort of challenges they were going through and so forth. That was one of the best things that I've ever done in the business. And again, as I look back on it, it's like, oh, it took me that long to do it. Well, I learned so much amazing information from them. I learned why they took my program. I learned what their challenges and pain points are. I learned more about them and their business, but I also learned their language that they use. I got to, hear in their own words how they're describing these things. And so I can use that language in my ads, in my copy on my landing pages, in my emails, any kind of sales copy. I can use their language. If I'm trying to attract more people like them, I can use their language that's going to attract other people like that. And so that was one of the best things that I did. And you can do that without customers, right? You can get into Facebook groups. You can get onto Amazon and read reviews. You can go to conferences and meet people that are your ideal audience and just have those conversations or read what your ideal customers are having challenges with, so that that is going to allow you to much more quickly build your business, build your email list, make more sales.
Key. This is like foundation. And I hope you guys are taking notes because, and take action on what you just said, because this is like, oh my goodness, so, so key that you do this.
You mentioned something, Rachel. I'm trying to cut you off there. When you mentioned it's foundational, right?
Yeah.
One of the conversations I love to have is when somebody comes to me who says that quote unquote they're an advanced, Facebook or Instagram marketer. Okay, cool. They're obviously coming to me with a problem, right? They want a challenge. They have a challenge and they're trying to improve it. So, all right, how advanced are they? Right? Is my first little red flag there. But when we dive into why they're not seeing the results that they want or something that's hanging them up, is exactly 9 times out of 10, it comes back to what we're talking about here, the fundamental stuff. And
Mhm.
so even the quote unquote more advanced marketers, this is this is the stuff that we're talking about. It's not some they didn't press some button in ads manager, or they didn't set it up this way. It's they didn't understand the target audience and the offer and the positioning, what we're talking about here. This is fundamental, basic stuff that even quote the most advanced marketers, they're skipping over oftentimes.
Totally. I mean, this is like exactly how I started my business is I wanted to teach online marketing, but I could have like I'm good at Facebook and YouTube and
Mhm.
Instagram. And it was through doing that market research and actually talking to my ideal client, I figured out that they wanted new leads and sales, but they didn't want to spend a ton of money on ads. And so it's
Yeah.
kind of like you need Pinterest. And that's how
Yep.
I started teaching Pinterest to people. It was literally
Yep.
through doing that market research and being like, huh, I know like I can solve your problem.
Yeah. Exactly. And you might, I love that. I love that the way that you just put that is like, well, I think that you need this, and we can do that, we can lead with that, when in reality they might want something completely else, like you just talked about. Well, I want to be able to build my list, but I don't really have any budget to work with. Well,
Yeah.
okay, Pinterest can be a very effective strategy for doing that.
Yeah.
I'm going to teach you how to do that and build my business based on that. It
Yep.
doesn't mean you have to stay doing that forever, but you can get kick things off doing that. And I love it. I love that you said that. Love the way that you said that.
Yeah. So let's talk about ads. So, what's the number one thing that entrepreneurs need or need to know about before they get started with Facebook ads?
I mean, we just mentioned a couple of those things: is understanding your target audience,
Yeah.
understanding the offer, and then once you have that, then it's really the mindset around, okay, this is going to be a game, right? I'm not going to necessarily hit it out of the park the first time. It might take me, 6 months before I start to find some traction here. But don't get me wrong, when I say that, you can see results, you can start to build momentum for spending a little bit of money, like $10 a day. You don't need to be spending hundreds of dollars a day in order to see results and get momentum. You can do it very inexpensively. But the 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 big challenge I see people make is that they go into it without the right mindset. They go into it thinking like, "Oh, I'm going to do this. This is going to work. I hear about how ads are working and for so and so, and yeah, I think I know what I'm doing here." Well, but then it doesn't work, and they try it for maybe a few weeks, and they're like, it doesn't work for them. It's like, oh, this doesn't work. Facebook, Instagram ads don't work. When in reality is they 100% work. You just have to be willing to test different things out. So for example, like you just mentioned, Rachel, they like the Pinterest course. Well, that is a strategy that works for people,
Mhm.
that because they're looking for that, I want to build my list without spending a lot of money or any money. Okay, cool. You can do it on Pinterest. Well, how you're positioning that to them, to here's a helpful video or a course or a video series, whatever it is that you're giving them, to how to do this on Pinterest. Well, maybe the angle that you were taking didn't resonate with them. Okay, cool. Well, test something else,
Yep.
right? And this is all about testing. And it's that short-term mindset that gets people into trouble. Whereas you got to go into it in the long term in mind. I'm going to test things out. I'm going to see how this works. I'm going to see what works, what doesn't, and I'm going to keep going. Using that to my advantage to continue to learn what's working, what's not working. Um, I'll finish this question or finish this answer with, so target audience, offer, the mindset around testing. I would say the other big thing is that most people get into ads without a clear objective or a clear goal.
Mm.
So they're like, oh, I want to run ads, and I want more people to see my stuff. I always love that one. Well, that is not a strategy,
No.
right? A strategy is I want excuse me, I want more people to see this so that I can do XYZ. Okay, cool. Now we're talking. But if it's excuse me, if it's just to have more people to see my stuff, that's not a good strategy. Now, if it's like I have a Pinterest course that I want to sell, and I'm going to do it via whatever, a webinar, and I'm going to run ads to get people to register for the webinar so that I can offer value and then offer my course. And I'm going to have an email follow-up series after that. Whatever. There we go. Now is the strategy.
Yep.
My end goal is to sell the program. I'm going to get people to purchase the program through a webinar, and I'm going to run ads to get people to the webinar. Okay, cool. Now we've got a strategy. Now we have a clear objective for our ads, and we can test that out. What most people do is they just start running ads and they don't have that clear strategy. And that's where you get into wasting money, because so many people are fearful of that. Well, if you don't have a clear strategy, you're going to be wasting money.
For sure. So, I mean, it's just like on Pinterest. I teach my students that they have to test their images, they have to test
Mhm.
their keywords, and like all of that too. What are some of the things that you need to test when it comes to Facebook ads?
Yeah, so it's the target audience, it's the offer, like we talked about, the image, right? If we're using images in our ads, if you're doing videos in our ads, testing those different types of things. Excuse me, the ad copy, the headline, and also the placement too. So placement, what I mean by placement is, I want my ad to run on in the Instagram newsfeed. Um, I also want it to run on the Facebook newsfeed, or I want it to run on the mobile newsfeed for either Instagram or I mean Facebook. That you can also test those different things. Now, those are all opportunities to test, but don't get me wrong. When you don't want to test all those things at the same time, right? You don't
Okay.
want to put like, all right, I'm going to run an ad, and then the next like 3 days later, I'm going to make a change to the image, the headline, that copy, and the placement, and all this other stuff. Well, if you when you go making all those changes, you don't know which change actually moved the needle, right?
Mm.
So I've just listed out a bunch of things that you can test. You want to be doing one thing at a time. So if my ad is running to this target audience, and let's just say that my click-through rate is really good, but my conversion rate on my landing page is really low, meaning people who are clicking on my ad going to my opt-in page, not many people are actually opting in. Okay, there's something we need to start with. Like, what we need to look at, like, is there a lack of consistency between the landing page and the ad? Why aren't people opting in? So that is one thing. I was like, all right, I'm going to make one change here, and then we'll see how that affects the conversion rate, and just kind of approach it from a methodical standpoint, rather than like, all right, I'm going to do all these things at the same time.
So you have to have patience, is what I'm hearing. Of
100%,
a
yes.
lot of patience, and it's not like an overnight thing where you're just gonna run an ad and magically find a winner.
Correct. I mean, it does happen, right? It does happen, but when it doesn't happen is when people have that big breakdown, right? Like,
Yeah,
oh, this doesn't work, or you know, Facebook or Instagram ads, they stink. This doesn't work. Well, they do work, but you just have
maybe.
to be willing to
Yeah,
test and
you have to
patient.
be patient for sure.
Absolutely. Yep.
What are some other mistakes that you see entrepreneurs making with their ads besides not being patient?
Um, not playing the long game, as far as they. It kind of does come back to patience. And you know, I had a guy on the podcast. Geez, at this point, probably a year and a half ago, and he emailed me and said, "You know what? You shared something on the podcast recently that I was like, oh, I got to try that." And what he was doing, so he came from the infomercial world. So like he's pitching products on TV. And apparently in the infomercial, I didn't know this, but in the infomercial world, if something isn't selling or isn't working within the first 24 hours, like you got to kill it. It's not going to work. And so he was taking that mentality into his Facebook ads. And so he was saying, oh, this isn't working within 24 hours. He was killing his ads. When what I talked about on the podcast, for example, was you got to wait at least 3 days before making any kind of changes. So you launch your ad, say on a Monday, like don't touch it until at least Thursday. Okay. Now this is very like high level. Of course, there's exceptions to this, but for the most part, you got to let it run. You got to let Facebook's what they call the algorithm, or the delivery technology, if you will, kind of let it do its thing. So he waited longer than 24 hours for his ad. And then I want to say after like 2 days, he got a sale. And then another day, he got another sale. And he started to like, oh, I'm getting sales here because I've waited on this. And a year later, because of this one change that he made, he did over $1 million in sales from his product, because he was patient and he let Facebook's algorithm work like it's supposed to. When we try to fight the algorithm, we try to fight, when we run an ad on Facebook and Instagram, the technology that's running in the background is trying to set us up for success. Like, it may not feel like that, but they want us to succeed. Why? Because if our ads are doing well, what are we going to do? We're going to spend more money. So they want us to be successful. And so, we have to give ourselves the opportunity to have that success. And that means um, using, for lack of a better way to say it, Facebook's algorithm to its advantage, like how you're supposed to do it. And so that means patient, becoming, very patient and playing that long game on the platform. The other big mistakes I see people make is that they just don't educate themselves on the platform itself. Meaning, like, what isn't it, like, what can I do in this ad set, or how, like, the make. I'm just general, generic. That's a new word for today.
Yep.
General, just like sort of a general high level of, like, all right, I don't understand this in Ads Manager, and so I'm just going to kind of breeze past it. When in reality, that could be a very important thing for you to know how to do in the interface there when you're setting up your campaigns. And so it's that little bit of ignorance of people not wanting to spend the time to really learn the ins and outs of how best to set things up from a best practice standpoint, and just kind of going in kind of willy-nilly. I'm going to just do what I think I should be doing, and that's where they run into problems, right? And so what I like to say is, just make yourself dangerous, meaning learn the basics, learn the foundation of what you need to know in order to create what I like to say, winning campaigns. And that is going to help you in the long run, because when you combine that with the type of stuff that we've been talking about, the target audience and the offer and being patient and testing, that is sort of the formula for success with whether it's Facebook or Instagram ads.
Got it. So let's say we're patient, we have something that's working, and we
Yep.
want to scale it. Do you
Yes.
see any issues come up with scaling too fast, or
100%.
what
Yeah, that,
happens?
that that's the biggest thing, is that people scale too fast.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is, like, let's just say you're running, $10 a day, and you're like, all right, this is working really well. I'm getting good leads. My cost per lead is really good. I'm really happy with this. I want more, right? And so I'm going to put more money into it. That's our natural, like, all right, let's crank this up from $10 a day to $100 a day. Well, it doesn't work like that on Facebook. If anybody has run, like, I don't know, Google AdWords, that's a different story. Like, they reward you for adding more money. Facebook does not reward you like that for some reason. I don't really know why. But what happens is when you set your ad campaign up at the start, you're entering into Facebook's auction, right? The whole Facebook and Instagram ad platform is an auction. So you're competing against other advertisers. So when you enter into that auction, whenever you start your ads, Facebook is looking at, like, how you set your ads up. Like, okay, these are the parameters that we're entering into the auction. And so we're setting your campaign up. Again, this is like Facebook talk here. We're setting your campaign up to get you the results based on what you're telling us that you want. Well, when you make a big change to it, it throws everything off. It kind of confuses the algorithm. And so we don't want to make such a big drastic jump from, say, $10 up to $100. In general, you don't want to increase that daily budget by more than, say, 30 to 40%. So we go from like $10 a day up to, $13 or $14 a day. Now, with that said, you might be like, well, Rick, that's not a very big jump. Well, there's other ways you can do it, right? Like, you can duplicate that ad set and increase the budget that way and start much higher. You can find additional target audiences that are similar to the audiences that are working well for you. You can use lookalike. I mean, there's all different types of things that you can do. But as far as from a mistake standpoint, when people are trying to scale, it's scaling too fast where they run into problems. Now, if somebody's listening to this later in the year, Facebook is making a pretty big change in September of 2019 here. They're going to be removing the ability to set your daily budgets at the ad set level. They're moving it all to the campaign level. And so what that means is, if I have right now, I have my, campaign ad sets and ads. That's the sort of the structure of the campaign. At the ad set level, that's your targeting groups. So let's just say I have 5 ad sets at $10 a day. So I'm spending $50 a day across these ad sets. Well, what Facebook is doing is it's removing the ability to set the budget at the ad set level and moving it up to the campaign level. So now you'll say, I want to spend $50 a day at the campaign level, and then these are the ad sets that I want to run. Well, and Facebook will automatically optimize the spend towards the best performing ad sets. And so we can do that right now. It's called campaign budget optimization. We've been able to do that for probably a year and a half now, but Facebook is moving towards like, this is the way that you do it. And so it'll be one thing I'm really curious about is how it's going to affect exactly what we're talking about here from a scaling perspective.
Mm.
My guess is that we will be able to make bigger jumps in our spend. So like, let's just say I want to go from $50 a day up to $100 a day. Well, that's a big jump. Then, if we're doing at the ad set level, I wouldn't recommend that. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens when it all goes to the campaign level, and in the scaling and the like how big of a jump that we can make. It'll be really interesting. I don't know. I went
Do
down
you
a
think
rabbit
it'll
hole
be a
there.
good change?
I think it's
Maybe.
going to be. I think it's going to be. I'm not excited about it, to be completely honest with you.
Yeah.
The reason for it is because so the way it is right now is if we put multiple ads within an ad set. Let's just say I'm targeting, I don't know, fans of Social Media Examiner, and I have, this audience of, let's just say, 1 million people. I don't know how big the audience would be, but let's say 1 million people. And then I want to test 4 different ads to that audience. So I put 4 ads within that one ad set targeting Social Media Examiner. Well, what the algorithm is going to do is it's going to very quickly pick 1, maybe 2 of those 4 ads as the quote unquote winners. And what it's going to do is, what I like to say, it's going to give way more love to those 1 or 2 ads, and then it's going to leave the other 2 alone. But it happens really, really quickly. And for years now, I've thought it happens way too fast, because in reality, those other 2 ads that aren't getting any delivery may have been good ads. But as soon as the algorithm sees there's some traction with 1 or 2 of those ads, boom, then it moves all of its emphasis, if you will, on those 1 or 2 ads. I see the same thing is going to happen when from an ad set level, right? So if I have a campaign budget of $100 and I have, 5 ad sets in there, well, it's going to pick the winning ad sets, if you will, very quickly. And so that brings up a whole, I don't know how much of a rabbit hole you want to go down in this, but it brings up a whole host of other things, right? Like, so I probably don't want to mix warm audiences and cold audiences in the same campaign, because my warm audience ad sets are going to be performing better than my cold audiences, right? So with this sort of what we're talking about here, if that is going to be what happens, Facebook is going to put most of its emphasis on the better performing ad sets, which are going to be very likely the warm audiences.
Yeah.
So what that might cause us to do is break out, kind of go back to what we used to do, is like we have a campaign of our warm audiences and then a campaign of our cold audiences, and so on. It's just going to be very interesting to see kind of how this starts to pan out.
For sure. Let's talk
Yeah.
targeting. Can you get too specific with your targeting?
Yes.
So like, okay, we could target like people who follow Social Media Examiner, or
Yep.
could I do something like expat moms with small children who are Christians who follow Social Media Examiner?
Yes, you can do that. You can do that, but I don't recommend it.
Okay.
That's another, talking about mistakes that people make, is that they think that because they're like, well, I understand my target audience. Like, well, Rick, you said to understand my target audience. I
Yeah.
understand them. And they're that person that you just mentioned, right? Like,
Right.
person. Okay, I get it. But what you don't want to do is you don't want to put too many layers of targeting in there, because it kind of chokes off, if you will, the algorithm. Like you're,
Okay.
you're you're putting too many qualifications on it to reach that person. And so what I'd recommend instead is to kind of take a step back a little bit and be targeted with your audience. So what was it? Expats who
Expat moms with small children who are Christians.
okay, cool. So what we could do there is you could target moms who have an interest in the Social Media Examiner and leave it at that.
Okay.
And then use your ad to speak to the expats who have, and the kid, they have kids.
Right.
So, well, and that's just a off the cuff
Example.
example,
Yeah.
right? Um, you don't want to put too many layers of it. You want to go broad, but yet also be targeted. So, for example, I always like to bring up the yoga niche as an example. So if I want to target, if I'm in the yoga niche, I'm selling, I don't know, a course on yoga poses or whatever. I probably want to target women between, I don't know, 28 and 50 who have an interest in yoga for sure. That's going to be a massive audience. Well, they probably are also interested in brands like Lululemon or Lorna Jane, or maybe in the States here, maybe they shop at Whole Foods. Maybe they read Yoga Journal magazine. Well, I wouldn't necessarily want to target women between 28 and 50 who have an interest in yoga and also have an interest in Lululemon, right? It's almost like I don't need to go that. I could target women between that age range who have an interest in Lululemon, period, and now let my ad speak to the audience within Lululemon who are interested in yoga. Because not everybody, not everybody who has an interest in Lululemon are going to be interested in yoga. But I can use my ad to speak directly to the people within that audience who I want to attract. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Totally. Totally. So let's say you have like a high ticket group coaching program or something that
Yep.
you want to sell. What would be
Mhm.
your strategy to fill that program?
So the big mistake that people make with this is they try to go directly to a sale to a cold audience, like people who don't even know who you are. So if I'm selling a I don't know, a $10,000 program for 6 months, somebody needs to know you. Somebody
Right.
needs you better have built a relationship with that person if you're trying to sell that type of high ticket offer. One strategy that I know works really well, we've done this ourselves, is to, and you can do this with cold traffic, but you're not selling the program off of a webinar, but you can run a webinar that is talking about some sort of topic that is relevant to what you're going to be helping with in the group coaching program. And then from that webinar, your offer, your sale, if you will, is a free strategy call or an application to get a free strategy call. And then from there, you get them, if they apply and they are a fit for your program, then you get in the phone with them. And that during that conversation is where you're selling the program. Um, so that works really well. Also, selling a high ticket item like that at live events, if you are hosting a live event, for example, and I don't mean it doesn't have to be an event of like 400 people, like you could have a room of like 15 people or 10 people, whatever it is. It's if people are spending time with you in person and they've gotten to know you, you're adding value, that's an amazing strategy, a very, very warm audience at that point to make an offer like a group coaching program. Your conversion rate on that's going to be very, very high because they're spending that time with you.
Definitely. Do you see any trends that are happening in Facebook ads specifically coming up in 2019? Any shifts that
um,
you see? I
yeah,
see
for
ad costs getting more expensive.
Well,
But
well, ad costs are, I mean, they've been going up for years now, right?
right. Hmm.
But with that said, and yes, they are certainly more expensive than they have been. With that said, I mean, we're recording this 1st of April here. Since October of 2018, so for the past, say, 6, 7 months or so, I've noticed a big drop in costs when it comes to um, webinars, when it comes to video series, when it comes to like lead magnets, just simple opt-ins.
Yeah.
I've seen the cost come way back down.
Awesome.
And we're talking like from a few years ago. Now I've also heard on the other side, like I've heard other people, and like same with us, we have seen costs, become really high with some things. But whether it's in my own business, whether it's my students' businesses, I see, talking to friends and colleagues and so forth, ad costs for those types of things have come very much down again.
Mm.
Been really happy with those results. Now, as far as and as we have this conversation, there's a lot of talk around Zuckerberg looking to shift how what the vision is for Facebook and all this other stuff. And um, we just at social media. I spoke at Social Media Marketing World here in San Diego a couple weeks ago, and there was almost like a doomsday kind of like, oh, Facebook's coming to an end sort of. That's not the case at all. Like, is it shifting? Yes, it is. Is it shifting towards more video? yes, Zuckerberg came out like a year and a half ago at this point and said that he sees it. I think he said by like 2020, the majority of the platform, he saw it as being video. So video, first and foremost, we've been talking about this for over a year now. Continue to do video. If you're doing video on Facebook and Instagram, continue doing it. If you're not, video is where it's at. Whether it's a 60-second video on Instagram or a video on Facebook's newsfeed. Another huge opportunity, especially here in 2019, is stories, Instagram story ads, Facebook story ads. From a supply and demand standpoint, there's huge supply and very little demand because most people either A, don't understand that's an opportunity to advertise, or B,
Mm.
they don't know how to do it, right? Well, you can put your 15-second video, just as a simple example, inside of Instagram stories. And those have for probably a year now been our best performing ads, our lowest cost ads, our best quality ads. And a lot of people are not taking advantage of it. So video and also story ads. I would say the other big thing, other big opportunity is Messenger. Learning
Mm.
how to leverage Messenger to the advantage of your business. And so Messenger often brings up like, well, chatbots, and I got to learn all this other stuff. Well, let me caveat that by saying doing Messenger is not going to solve the fact that you don't understand your target audience
Yep.
or don't have an offer that converts, right? Messenger is not going to solve a broken funnel. Oftentimes people love it because it's the shiny object, right? Like people, it's like the sexy thing I want to try on Facebook to do Messenger. That's not going to solve the fundamental problems that you have in your marketing funnel. If you have a converting funnel, you understand your target audience and your offer and stuff like that. Okay, cool. Now we're talking. That is a great way to approach Messenger as an opportunity to have one-to-one conversations with people and to move people through your sales funnel, your customer journey. Messenger is a huge opportunity and only going to get bigger. I mean, Facebook owns WhatsApp, right? And
Yep.
so you can run ads in WhatsApp now. It's only becoming a bigger opportunity as we go along here. And it's the people who understand not only their fundamentals and get that stuff working, but how to leverage a platform like Messenger um, to reach new people and approach them in a different way than maybe when you run an ad on Instagram or Facebook, it's one to many, right?
Mm.
Well, when we're doing Messenger, now we get to have a one-to-one conversation, whether it's automated from a chat bot or not. More and more people are becoming more comfortable with chatbots where for early on they were like, oh, like this is an automated response, like I don't want to talk to this I don't want to talk to this. But as long as they're being helped and served and there's value being given, we've seen that people just don't really care that as long as they're being helped, as long as they're being served. And so yeah.
What's a kind of ad that you would run on Messenger that you think would be effective?
Well, I mean, you could do using the example we just talked about before, like a webinar registration.
Okay.
You can do that, and there's different ways to do that, right? You can run a simple ad that is a what they call like a messenger objective, for example, or you can do like a traffic type of ad where when people click on the ad, it pops Facebook Messenger, and you can have an automated response set up that maybe asks them a question. And so ask them a question, they answer. Now they're added to your messenger list, which
Mm.
is powerful on many different levels, meaning you can now message them. You can now they're if you have a retargeting audience set up of people who are engaging with your Facebook page, they're now in that audience. So you can retarget those people. But the level of engagement has gone way up, right? Because they have raised their hand essentially by clicking on the ad, popping Messenger. They've answered a question that you just asked them, and now you can follow up with either the link, to go register for this webinar, or there's in certain cases you can set up so that you can just ask them for their information right there, like name and email within Messenger, and have it automated and where it's automated registration for the webinar. So there's different things that you can do with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a student who just he was running ads for just kind of a side note. He was running ads for a realtor, and they were trying to sell a house, and he was doing it via Messenger, and he sold a $600,000 house in 5 days. And I want to say he spent like $260 on Messenger ads, and he sold
Wow.
a $1,000 house. Yeah,
Okay, that's a powerful thing.
yeah, yeah. So it works. It works
Yeah. What's the best book you've ever read?
in general.
Yeah. Well, general or business, either one.
Holy cow!
Or lately, something that comes to mind.
So two books just popped in my mind. Number one is 80/20 Sales and Marketing by Perry Marshall.
I'm going to write
Um,
that one down.
yeah, it's an amazing book. I read that book like once a year. And I forget what the subtitle is, but it's like the definitive guide to making more while doing less or something like that. And he just talks about the whole principle of 80/20. You know,
Mm,
like where am I getting 80% of my results while doing 20% of the effort?
mm,
So that book is amazing. And then just it's still a businessy book, but it's not like 80/20 sales and marketing. But Shoe Dog by Phil Knight. It's the autobiography, or excuse me, the biography of Phil Knight. And is it the autobiography? I think it's the autobiography. I think he wrote it. Amazing book. Amazing book. I had multiple people tell me to read it like last year, and I was like, yeah, I'll get to it. Um, Finally, somebody like they told me like for the third time to read it, and I read it. I get into it, and I'm like not even, yes, I wear Nike, but I'm not like I'm not a Homer or anything like that. Um, Holy cow, I blew through it in like 3 days. I loved it. Just an amazing story of how he built the Nike brand. And the way that it's written is really engaging. He just did a great job with it.
cool. I added
Yeah.
to my list.
Yep.
What does it mean to you to make an impact?
Um, if I'm able to help people grow their business, as they grow their business, they're able to help their customers, their audience. And so when I'm helping other business owners grow their business, my business is growing. As a result, my life is improving, or it is better. The people I'm helping, their business is growing, their business, and thus their life is better. And when they're helping more people, all of their customers are living better lives as a result of however that person is helping them. For me, that's an impact. I call it the ripple effect because
That's what I
I
was
help.
just thinking. I was like,
Yeah,
it's like a giant ripple effect.
I help this person who, and by helping this person, the more people I can help do that, my business is growing, and I'm having a better life. That person's business is growing, they're having a better life, and they're able to help more people on their end. And so my impact goes beyond just the immediate people I'm helping. It's also the people that they're helping. And that's what I think about every day in my business here is how can I have a bigger impact so that my students can help more people, and that way I'm indirectly impacting more people that way.
Ooh, it's so good. Well, what's next for you?
What's next for me? Um, we are really excited about this year. We have a new program called Foundations, which is how to create winning Facebook and Instagram ad campaigns without the overwhelm, without the fear and intimidation. It's talk about the 80/20 principle. I created it very strategically in a way that it's the 20% that you need to know about Facebook and Instagram ads in order to get 80% of your results. So I'm excited about that. We have a new membership program launching
Ooh.
in the next month or so for online experts, and really excited about that. We are doing our group coaching program for the second half of the year again. That starts in July, and we have a live event coming up in which we're going to change around. I don't know exactly what it looks like yet, but I'm really excited about it because I have an idea of the vision for it, but we're going to do that in October here in San Diego that I'm really excited about. So all those things, really
Busy,
excited about
busy
it.
guy.
Yeah,
Where
exactly.
where can we connect with you?
I would say the two main places are Instagram at Rick Mulready and my podcast, The Art of Paid Traffic. And I'm on all the platforms: iTunes, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Wherever people listen to podcasts, the Art of Paid Traffic is there.
Go subscribe to his podcast right
Thank
now.
you.
It is so good.
Thank
So
you.
good.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, Rick, this was like amazing, mind blowing, so, so valuable. So thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate that.